Allen was shackled and in a ballistic vest that his attorney claimed was electrified to shock him if he misbehaved.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Well, breaking news, Richard Allen's own attorneys have said that their client has made multiple confessions, 5 or 6 they say, to the murders of Abby and Libby, and the prosecution have accepted these. Before we get to the rest of this episode, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Bear in mind, I have actually visited Delphi, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So according to the Carroll County prosecutor, Nick McClelland, he told Judge Fran Gull that Allen, a 50-year-old father of 2, that he'd actually made multiple confessions to multiple people, that is, since his arrest last October. Now, if only that were the end of the story, it's not clear whether Allen made any of these confessions to his own lawyers. Did he make some of these confessions to inmates? His lawyers are saying while it's true that he confessed, these should be taken with a pinch of salt, given his obviously declining physical and mental condition over the past 9 months. And I don't think there's any question about that. He is looking a lot thinner, and certainly in terms of his effect, he does seem a little confused. Even crazier, when Allen appeared in court today, he was wearing, get this, an electrified bulletproof vest designed to shock Allen if he didn't behave. Well, evidently he did behave, at least in front of his own lawyers and in the courtroom, as no admissions occurred in court on Thursday. Now, you would imagine if he was so eager to confess that this would be the venue for it. This would be the place to say, Judge, this is what happened. It's also interesting to see once again just what a tiny fellow this feared monster is. Even female court orderlies tower over him when he was led into the dock this morning. So where are we right now? Well, it's difficult to know what to make of Allen and his situation. On the one hand, it's hard to have any sympathy for Allen whatsoever, given his predicament. On the other, certainly from a legal position, one wants to be able to try suspects who are physically and mentally competent to stand trial. You don't want a situation where your inmate, your person standing trial, is so compromised physically or mentally or both that their competency then kind of gets called into question. And so whose responsibility is it if Allen isn't competent? And you kind of get the idea, such a small little guy, kind of a pipsqueak in the general population of a jail, is going to get kind of the short end of the stick, to put it mildly. Meanwhile, the defense team have described ballistics evidence as flimsy. Well, is it? When Bridge Guy said down the hill, a recording many of us have heard, why were Abby and Libby so compliant? This is something I put up in the community post a couple of hours ago. You've got this hot young musician, and obviously Bridge Guy is not that person. So why were Abby and Libby doing as they were told? Why were they going along with this stranger, this, flabby fossil, this, to some extent, even quite a small guy? Couldn't the two of them even theoretically have overpowered him? Also, why didn't they just run the other way? Well, have you ever been to the Manon High Bridge? I have, and there aren't a lot of places to run. There are a lot of very steep embankments. Your alternatives, the various options to escape from a particular path are extremely limited. And they're even more limited when you have a gun pointed at your friend's ear. It's always made sense to speculate that was how Bridge Guy had these unfortunate youngsters under a kind of remote control. But now, obviously, it seems to have been corroborated. the probable cause affidavit, unsealed in November 2022, indicated that investigators found an unspent round, not just a round, an unspent round near the girls' bodies. A forensic expert determined the bullet had been ejected from Allen's Sig Sauer model P226. And so what we're probably going to see is a battle of the experts. One forensic expert saying this definitely comes from that specific Sig Sauer. And then another expert saying, well, how can you say that? Couldn't it have come from another Sig Sauer? I do think there is some merit to that argument when dealing with an unspent round. The question is, are we going to be dealing with spent rounds? Are there going to be other projectiles, for example, found in the autopsy or in the human remains? And of course, we don't know that because we haven't had access to the discovery. And that's the other kind of bombshell in this, is that the discovery is going to be released sometime next week.
Judge Fran Gall also announced that next week she would unveil a website, a portal, to unseal many of the sealed and secret documents that have been part of this case from the very start, and even the reasons why Richard Allen was arrested. And we expect that website to be unveiled next week. There will also be a hearing sometime down the road where the defense will attempt to defeat and throw out some of that evidence, including that bullet that was found at the scene.
The rabbit hole in this case extends, of course, beyond Richard Allen. Prosecutors believe Allen didn't act alone, and I tend to agree with them, but I'm not sure one should read into that there was someone else with him at the scene with the girls. Something else that has come out, I think, fairly recently is the idea that what he actually wanted to do, what Richard Allen wanted to do, was actually kidnap or abduct one of the girls from the scene. Not easy to do, although it does. If he did have a car parked nearby, perhaps he was on the way to doing exactly that. Who knows? Perhaps that whole area was simply a staging area for where he wanted to go from there, but then things did go wrong. Who knows? Some say there was at least one additional party who knew what was happening. Some say 2, some say 3, and some say that would include Ron Logan. It's difficult to know just how dark and filthy the criminal psychology is in this case. What is the scale and scope of it? I mean, we do know that family members of one of the victims, when they came into the pharmacy where he worked, he offered to have their photos printed free of charge. What is clear, though, is the man on the bridge, who once appeared daunting and monstrous, bears little resemblance to the frail bird-like creature that appeared in court today. I'm not going to take it further than that, but obviously I will be covering the release of that discovery. So watch this channel, watch this space for details, especially next week. Also take note that I'll be doing a live stream later today dealing with Corey Richens. I'm going to be taking you through the methodology. How does this channel, what is the true crime rocket science approach? When you, at the very beginning of a case, how do you begin your analysis? Is it really straightforward? It's not really a big deal, or is it actually quite a useful formula to sort of write down and bear in mind? So if you're interested in that, we're going to be dealing with that in the Corey Richens case. I've done quite a lot of research, so I think that's going to be quite a good live stream. That's at about 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And at the same time, tomorrow, Saturday, I'll be doing a review of my trip through the USA, 2 months, around about 7 weeks. Why was I in America? What did I discover? What is the point of all of that? Well, not going to be telling you about it. I'm going to be showing you some of the crime scenes that I visited in the, in America, and the fabric that I was able to travel through and get to know and get to understand during that period. Should be quite interesting. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.